The cold metallic bridge of the UES Harmony hummed with quiet anticipation. Captain J. Park stood motionless, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic star map flickering before him. Something was different today. Something felt unusual. Science. Officer Hai Kim adjusted her console, her fingers dancing across the translucent screens. A strange signal had been detected in the outer quadrants of the Orion Spiral, a region typically ignored by most exploration vessels. The signal was weak but persistent, like a distant heartbeat calling out from the darkness of space. "Captain," Hai called out, her voice cutting through the ship's ambient noise. "I'm detecting an unusual communication pattern." Jay approached, his military-trained posture relaxed but alert. The holographic display zoomed into a cluster of stars rarely charted by human expeditions. A faint, pulsing energy signature emerged, not random but structured. Intelligent. "Can you decode it?" Jay asked. Chai worked quickly, her fingers moving with practiced precision. Layers of complex signals began to unravel, revealing a communication method unlike anything they had encountered before. It was elegant, almost musical in its complexity. Suddenly, a visual transmission flickered to life. A figure appeared, humanoid but distinctly alien. Blue-silver skin shimmered under what seemed like artificial light. Large, intelligent eyes filled with a mixture of hope and wariness looked directly at them. "I am Taman," the figure spoke, his voice carrying a melodic undertone. "We have been waiting for someone to listen." The transmission revealed a story of systematic oppression. The Kira, Taman's species, had been deliberately marginalized by powerful galactic civilizations. Their advanced communication technologies had been suppressed, their scientific discoveries stolen, their cultural achievements erased. Jay and Hai listened intently. This was more than a random encounter. This was a moment that could change everything. Tamin explained how his people had developed a revolutionary communication technology that could potentially transform interstellar dialogue, but every time they attempted to share their innovations, powerful galactic councils would intervene, blocking their progress. "We are not weak," Taman said, a spark of defiance in his voice. "We are simply waiting for an opportunity." The transmission contained encrypted data packets, scientific research, technological schematics, historical records. It was a comprehensive file documenting the Kira's suppressed potential. Chwai began analyzing the data. What she discovered was extraordinary. The Kira's communication technology was generations ahead of current galactic standards. It could potentially create instantaneous, interference-free communication across vast cosmic distances. "This is impossible," Hai whispered, her scientific mind racing. "This could revolutionize everything we know about interstellar communication." Jay understood the implications immediately. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a potential diplomatic game-changer. The ship's communication systems continued processing Taman's transmission. More details emerged about the Kira's history. A civilization pushed to the margins, their potential deliberately restricted by more powerful galactic entities. "We do not seek conflict," Taman had said. "We seek understanding." Back on Earth, such a transmission would require extensive diplomatic review. But J. Park was not a typical captain. He saw an opportunity where bureaucrats would see complications. "Prepare a secure communication channel," he instructed Hai. "We're going to respond." The bridge crew watched in anticipation. This was no ordinary first contact scenario. This was the beginning of something much larger. As the UES Harmony maintained its position, the holographic display continued pulsing with the Kira's signal. A beacon of hope, waiting to be understood. Taman's final words in the transmission resonated with a quiet power. "We are ready. Are you?" Captain J. Park looked at Hai, a subtle smile crossing his typically stoic face. "Well," he said, "it seems our mission just got a lot more interesting." The stars outside seemed to twinkle with potential, as if witnessing the first moments of a story that would change the galaxy forever. The United Earth diplomatic headquarters buzzed with tension. Ambassador Siak Choi studied the files from the UES Harmony, his fingers tracing the encrypted data about the Kira species. Outside the panoramic windows, the bustling city of New Geneva seemed oblivious to the potential galactic shift happening within these walls. Hai Kim's technical report lay spread across the conference table. Complex diagrams and communication algorithms told a story of suppressed potential. The Kira's communication technology was not just advanced, it was revolutionary. We cannot ignore this, Sayok muttered to himself. The Galactic Council's historical records painted a brutal picture. Powerful species had systematically marginalized the Kira, blocking their technological and cultural development. Economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, technological embargoes. Every possible method had been used to keep the Kira contained. Siak began drafting a comprehensive strategy. This would not be a simple diplomatic mission. This would be a carefully orchestrated challenge to the existing galactic power structures. His first move was unexpected. Instead of direct confrontation, he chose information dissemination. Carefully, curated reports about the Kira's potential began circulating through diplomatic channels, academic networks, and media platforms. The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. By exposing the Kira's story, he was forcing the galactic community to acknowledge their systemic oppression. Meanwhile, on the UES Harmony, Captain J. Park was preparing for the next phase. Taemin, the Kira diplomat, would be their key witness. His personal testimony would be powerful evidence of the discrimination his species had endured. Shai worked tirelessly, translating and verifying the Kira's technological data. Each breakthrough was meticulously documented. The communication technology they had discovered could potentially revolutionize interstellar communication, making current systems look primitive. The first international response was predictably complex. Some species were curious, others defensive. The major galactic powers remained suspiciously silent. Siak anticipated this. He had prepared a multi-layered approach that would force engagement. During a critical United Earth Senate hearing, Taemin appeared via holographic transmission. His calm demeanor and articulate presentation were powerful. He didn't plead. He stated facts. "We are not asking for charity," Taemin explained. "We are requesting an opportunity to contribute." The hearing room fell silent. His words carried a weight that transcended typical diplomatic language. Jay and Hai watched the transmission from the Harmony. Their initial discovery was transforming into a potential movement. The Kira were no longer just a marginalized species. They were becoming a symbol of resistance. Siak's diplomatic strategy involved building a coalition. He reached out to smaller, less powerful galactic species who had also experienced systematic suppression. Each connection created a network of potential allies. The major galactic powers began to take notice. Their usual mechanisms of control were being systematically challenged by a combination of human determination and Kira resilience. Intelligence reports suggested internal discussions among the Galactic Council members. Some were concerned, others were angry, but none could ignore the growing momentum. Hai's technological analysis became a critical weapon. Her detailed reports demonstrated how the Kira's communication technology could solve several existing interstellar communication challenges. It was no longer just about justice. It was about practical innovation. Captain J. Park prepared the Harmony for potential diplomatic missions. They would be more than observers now. They would be active participants in a potential galactic transformation. Taemin continued to provide critical insights. His understanding of galactic political dynamics, combined with human strategic thinking, created a powerful approach that no one had anticipated. The diplomatic storm was gathering strength. What had started as a simple deep space communication was rapidly becoming a movement that could reshape galactic relationships. Siak Choi allowed himself a small smile. The game had changed, and humanity was playing by entirely new rules. As reports continued to spread and discussions intensified, one thing became clear. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. The Kira were no longer going to be silent, and humanity had decided to stand with them. The research facility gleamed like a silver beacon against the stark landscape of New Terra Base. Haye Kim stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers dancing across translucent screens. Beside her, Taemin watched with intense concentration, his blue-silver skin reflecting the soft, technological glow. They were about to change everything. The Kira communication technology had been a hidden treasure, locked away for generations. Now, with human support, it was being transformed into something extraordinary. What once was a suppressed innovation was becoming a weapon of peaceful revolution. J. Park walked into the lab, his military jacket crisp and clean. "Show me," he said simply. Haye activated the primary demonstration. A complex network of quantum communication nodes flickered to life. Unlike traditional communication systems that relied on electromagnetic waves, this technology used quantum entanglement in ways never before imagined. Instantaneous communication, Taemin explained, across unlimited distances. No delay, no interference. The implications were massive. Current galactic communication systems could take weeks or months to transmit information across vast star systems. This new technology could reduce that to milliseconds. Military strategists, scientific researchers, and diplomatic teams watched the demonstration. The room buzzed with nervous excitement. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a complete transformation of how species could interact. Captain J understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just about communication. This was about connection, about breaking down barriers that had existed for centuries. Chai began, showing practical applications. A holographic simulation demonstrated how the technology could work. A message sent from one end of the galaxy would appear instantly at the other end, clear and uncompromised. "No more communication blackouts," Taemin said quietly. "No more isolated communities." The first practical test involved connecting two research stations separated by thousands of light years. Previous systems would have required complex relay stations and would still have significant transmission delays. This new system worked perfectly. Researchers from multiple species began arriving at the facility. Some were curious, some were skeptical, but none could deny the potential of what they were seeing. The Kira's suppressed technology was more than just a communication system. It was a bridge between civilizations. Jay recognized the political implications immediately. This technology could reshape galactic dynamics. Isolated species could now communicate freely. Suppressed communities could share information instantly. Taemin explained how his people had developed this technology in secret, protecting it from those who would suppress their innovations. "We knew," he said, "that someday someone would understand." The human team worked tirelessly. Each breakthrough was carefully documented, each test meticulously analyzed. They weren't just developing a technology, they were creating a tool for galactic transformation. Diplomatic channels began buzzing with excitement and concern. Some galactic powers saw this as a threat, others saw it as an opportunity. I continued refining the systems. Additional quantum stabilization algorithms were developed. The technology became more robust, more reliable. "We're not just creating a communication system," Haye told her team. "We're creating a framework for understanding." The first public demonstration would be critical. It would show the galaxy that the Kira were not a weak species to be marginalized, but a civilization with extraordinary potential. Taemin's eyes reflected a mixture of hope and determination. Years of suppression had not broken his spirit. Instead, they had made him and his people more resilient. As the final tests were completed, something became clear. This was more than a technological uprising. This was a declaration of potential, a statement that said, "We will no longer be silenced." The quantum communication nodes pulsed with energy, each beat a promise of a new future. A future where distance was no longer a barrier, where understanding could flow as freely as light. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Massive holographic displays surrounded the circular platform, where representatives from hundreds of species waited. Ambassador Seok Choi stood at the center, calm and determined. Behind him stood Taman, his blue-silver skin reflecting the chamber's soft light. Captain J. Park and Hai Kim were positioned strategically, their presence a silent statement of support. This was the moment of confrontation. The council representatives represented powers that had controlled galactic politics for centuries. They were used to making decisions. They were not used to being challenged. Siak began his presentation. No dramatic speeches, just pure documented facts about the systematic suppression of the Kira species. Data streams flowed across the holographic. Displays, economic records, communication logs, technological suppression documents. Each piece of evidence was meticulously verified. Each statement was backed by irrefutable proof. The Zorn delegation, known for their aggressive diplomatic stance, shifted uncomfortably. Their representative, a massive creature with crystalline skin, tried to interrupt. Seok simply continued, his voice steady. Taman's quantum communication technology demonstration was the centerpiece. A live transmission showed instantaneous communication between research stations thousands of light years apart. No delays, no interference. The chamber went completely silent. Some representatives looked shocked, others looked angry, a few looked genuinely impressed. For generations, Siak explained, the Kira have been systematically prevented from sharing their technological innovations. This stops now. Hai stepped forward, presenting technical details. Her scientific presentation was precise, leaving no room for argument. The communication technology wasn't just advanced, it was revolutionary. Captain J. Park stood like a guardian. His military presence was a clear message. Humanity was fully committed to supporting the Kira. The Galactic Council had never experienced such a direct challenge. Previous diplomatic interactions had always been about compromise, about maintaining existing power structures. This was different. Taman spoke next. His voice was calm but carried tremendous weight. He described his people's history, not as victims, but as a civilization with extraordinary potential that had been deliberately suppressed. We do not seek revenge, Taman said. We seek opportunity. The quantum communication technology demonstration continued. Each test showed how it could transform communication across the galaxy. Faster, clearer, more reliable. Some smaller species began showing support. Their representatives nodded, understanding the potential of what was being presented. The major powers tried to push back. Diplomatic arguments were raised. Technical objections were attempted, but each argument was systematically dismantled by the human Kira team. Siak had prepared for every possible counterargument. His strategy was not just about presenting facts, it was about changing the entire conversation. Hours passed. The confrontation continued. What had started as a formal council meeting was transforming into something historic. Jay watched carefully. He understood this was more than a diplomatic meeting. This was a potential turning point for galactic civilization. Hai continued presenting technical details. Her research was comprehensive. Her arguments were clear. She demonstrated how the Kira's technology could solve multiple existing communication challenges. The Galactic Council was being forced to confront its own systematic biases. No diplomatic maneuvering could hide the truth anymore. As the presentation concluded, something had fundamentally changed. The power dynamics that had existed for generations were being rewritten. Taman looked at Seok. A subtle smile crossed his face. They both knew this was just the beginning. The galactic confrontation had exposed more than just technological potential. It had revealed the possibility of a different kind of future. A future where potential was not suppressed but celebrated. The chamber light seemed to shine a little brighter. The silence was no longer tense. It was anticipatory. 5 years had passed since the historic Galactic Council confrontation. The universe looked different now. Taman stood on the observation deck of the Interstellar Harmony Station, watching shuttles from dozens of species move smoothly through space. His blue-silver skin reflected the starlight, a symbol of transformation. The Belai, Quantum communication network had changed everything. What was once a suppressed technology was now the standard across galactic communications. Isolated species were now connected. Remote civilizations could share knowledge instantly. Captain J. Park approached, his familiar military jacket now adorned with diplomatic insignia. "Quite a view," he said quietly. Shai Kim was busy in the central research hub, continuing to refine the communication technologies. Her team now included researchers from over 47 different species, a diversity that would have been unimaginable 5 years earlier. The new Galactic Collaborative Charter had rewritten fundamental interaction protocols. Species that were previously marginalized now had formal representation. Economic barriers were dismantled. Technological exchanges became standard practice. The Kira were no longer seen as a suppressed civilization. They were recognized as technological pioneers. Ambassador Seok Choi had been instrumental in drafting the new galactic guidelines. His diplomatic strategy had transformed from confrontation to collaborative reconstruction. Research stations across multiple star systems now featured joint teams. Scientists from previously isolated civilizations worked together, sharing knowledge without restrictions. Taman remembered the early days, the years of silence, the systematic suppression. Now, everything had changed. The quantum communication network did more than transmit data. It created understanding. Species could now experience each other's cultures, scientific discoveries, and perspectives in real time. Smaller civilizations that were once ignored now had platforms to share their innovations. The balance of power had fundamentally shifted. Jay watched a group of young researchers from different species collaborating. Their ease with each other represented the new reality. Differences were no longer barriers, they were opportunities. The economic impact was equally profound. Trade restrictions had been removed. Species could now engage in direct technological and cultural exchanges without intermediaries. Shai's continued research was pushing boundaries. The quantum communication technology was evolving, becoming more sophisticated with each passing year. "We're just getting started," she would often say, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. The human approach had been critical. Instead of military intervention or economic pressure, they had chosen understanding. They had amplified the voice of a marginalized civilization. Taman reflected on their journey, from a desperate communication signal to a galactic transformation. Humanity had not just helped the Kira, they had helped reimagine galactic civilization. Political structures were being rebuilt. The old guard of galactic powers had been forced to adapt or become irrelevant. Transparency became the new standard. Research funding was now distributed more equitably. Species were evaluated based on their potential, not their existing power structures. The observation deck bustled with activity. Diplomats, scientists, and cultural representatives moved together, a living representation of the new galactic reality. Jay looked at Taman. No words were necessary. They both understood the significance of what they had achieved. A young researcher approached, representing a previously unknown species from a distant star system. "We heard about your story," she said to Taman. "We want to learn." That was the real victory. Not just technological advancement, but the spread of understanding. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter. The universe felt more connected, more alive. As another shuttle entered the station, carrying researchers from a new civilization, Taman smiled. The journey was far from over, but they had taken the first important steps.